We do have the risk of severe weather today. The biggest storm should be between about 4 and 7 o'clock.
This storm system is getting close to Indiana right now.
It is going to pack quite a punch.
The main threat here is straight line winds. Everybody is going to see big winds. Some of them are going to be damaging.
This is what you don't want to see when you're dealing with storm damage.
Thousands without power right now.
When you've got 90-mile-an-hour winds, it doesn't matter if it's twisting or going straight at you. It's going to do damage.
Trust the Wsbt 22 Storm Alert Weather Team. First, fast, accurate. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 5 with Jennifer Copeland and Todd Connor.
Breaking news right now at 5. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has selected Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate. The California senator was elected in 2016 after serving as the state's attorney general. Harris competed against Biden for the presidential nomination for the Democrats, but left the race before the primaries. We'll have much more on this developing story coming up.
It's a beautiful day to clean up a mess.
People are here to help. They, don't ask twice. They just come and help us. It's amazing.
Almost 24 hours after a powerful storm just blew through, people in our area still picking up the pieces.
Yeah, they definitely are. The storm packed quite a punch with 2 different tornadoes being reported. It damaged buildings, downed trees, and knocked out power. Take a look here at the latest report from Indiana Michigan Power. Right now, there are more than 22,000 customers who do not have power. We're talking all the way from Lakeville to Bangor. Now, there are also reported outages in the Fort Wayne area.
And just an hour ago, our team put Drone 22 up in the air to get a bird's eye view of some of that damage. You can see the path of the storms that tore through that field and then hit the grain bins and some barns.
Yeah, we have team coverage for you tonight here at 5 as we are following up on the areas most severely impacted by last night's storm.
But first, we want to get to Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin, who tracked the storm all last night for us. Matt, the National Weather Service determined there were 2 tornadoes.
Exactly. So let's focus on that first, and then I want to give an overall summary of what happened. There was 2. One was in far southern St. Joseph County. It happened around the intersection of Dogwood and Riley, far southern parts of the county in Madison Township. Went about 3 miles or so. Thankfully, there's a lot of farm fields down here. I know those of you who live down there, though, it's not so rural, right, when it's your house. Did do some damage to some farm equipment, some silos and whatnot out that way. It was rated an EF1 tornado by the National Weather Service with maximum winds around 110 miles an hour. The other one was in North Webster. And this was a lucky one, too, that was just north of town. It started on the west side of State Road 13, impacted a church, did a little damage there, and then stayed over wooded area over North Webster. It's very lucky this happened and not a mile south, because if you've been down this way, right along Lake Webster, there's a ton of houses, obviously, around the lake, which would have been much worse. But it was a little bit farther north, went through wooded area, maximum wind speed with that about 90 miles an hour. Outside of that, there was a lot of wind damage, and I don't want to discount that because I know a lot of you have seen issues. And keep in mind, this is just computer-generated storm reports here. I know there's a lot of areas that don't have blue dots that saw damage. Pulaski County, Cass County, good chunk of Elkhart County had a lot of issues that aren't on here. But I wanted to show you the overall picture. This was a derecho is what we call them. It was a huge wind event that spread across the Midwest and Great Lakes. There it is. It started in the Dakotas, went through Iowa, Illinois, slammed into our area, and then dissipated as it moved into Ohio. So I'm well aware a lot of you have to do a lot of cleanup. It costs a lot. It takes a ton of time to get all that cleaned up. Good news is I've got some good weather for you over the coming days to get some of that work done. Temperatures in the 80s now, fall into the low 70s later on this evening. I'll talk about when you may need to start looking up to the sky for the next chance for some storms coming up here in just a few minutes.
All right, we'll see you then, Matt. Thank you. Parts of Michigan were hit hard by that storm. Take a look at this. These are some photos that have been shared with WSBT 22. This tree fell in Buchanan. We have a team in Berrien County right now, and we'll have a report on more damage for you tonight at 10 and 11.
And our team coverage continues with WSBT 22's Caroline Torrey, who's just outside of Wakarusa. And Caroline, there are multiple spots of destruction along County Road 44.
Todd, I saw at least 4 properties in just a couple of mile stretch on this east-west running road with significant damage to buildings and farm equipment. So take a look at your screen, new at 5 tonight. Look at this video of what was a storage and machine shed. The middle of the building is no longer there. The storm tore right through it, ripping the walls up from the foundation. The farmer also saw one of his corn bins crumpled. Less than 2 miles east on the same road, this homeowner reports heavy damage to trees, a shed, and grain bin. Amy Lehman says she estimates a few $100,000 of damage there. She's thankful neighbors, friends, and even some strangers came out to help her family clean up starting early this morning.
People are like, how are you not more shaken up? I'm like, my children are fine, my husband's fine, my family's fine. Nothing else matters. This is just stuff. It can all be replaced.
She says she heard some people on social media call the storm disappointing, but she wants those people to look in her yard to see some of the devastating effects from it. Live outside of Wakarusa, I'm Caroline Torrey, Wsbt 22 News.
That storm has left many people cleaning up in Mentone as well. WSBT 22's DJ Manu continues our team coverage with a look at how the storm took out a Little League baseball field.
I'm standing in center field, but these bleachers used to be back there by the third base dugout. It was lifted up and thrown over here along with several chunks of wood. Looking around the diamond, all the bleachers were ripped up and mangled. Ann Yates is a former board member of the Mentone Youth League and says they were just installed last year. The dugouts and fence are also blown over or bent. Another field has mostly downed trees and a bent fence. Luckily, the Little League season is over, but the president says cleanup will have to be quick since other activities are scheduled to use this field later this week. He's hoping insurance will be able to cover the repairs. It's a tough sight for Yates to see, but she says members of her softball team she coaches are planning to come out this Saturday to help with the cleanup.
A lot of us spend a lot of time here during the summers. You know, this is our home, our second home. And then when something like this, but I mean, we have a great community. It'll get back to where we want it to be.
Now, this field is right next to one of the hardest hit neighborhoods here in Mentone. Coming up at 6, I'll show you the extent of the damage and how one man was actually outside when everything was falling around him. In Mentone, DJ Manu, WSBT 22 News.
It's a historic day in college sports. Breaking news right now as the Big Ten has decided to suspend fall sports, including football. WSBT 22 Sports Director Pete Byrne joins us now at the live desk. And Pete, what does this mean?
Well, Todd, while it's not a surprise in light of the reports that have been swirling over the past 24 hours, it is a shock nonetheless. There will be no Big Ten football in the fall. The Big Ten said in a statement that after consulting medical and infectious disease experts, quote, it became abundantly clear that there was too much uncertainty regarding potential medical risks to allow our student athletes to compete this fall. The Big Ten did say that it's looking into whether or not the spring might be a viable option for fall sports to resume. Minutes after announcing the league's decision, new Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren explained the rationale.
The health, the safety, the wellness, and both physical and mental for our student athletes was going to be at the top of my list. And as things began to evolve, you look at the number of cases that are spiking, the number of deaths, not only in our country, in our states where many of our schools are located, but worldwide, is that I promise that all the decisions that we will make during my tenure here at the Big Ten will always put the mental and physical health and safety and wellness of our student athletes at the center.
Now, the Big Ten was the first of 2 Power 5 conferences the fall today. The Pac-12 announcing just less than an hour ago that it has suspended all sports until January 1st. That includes basketball. That's how far out they're going. As for the ACC, which is the temporary home for Notre Dame football, indications today are that the league is still proceeding in an effort to play. In fact, I've just confirmed that Notre Dame plans to practice tomorrow, and I'll have more on that tonight on WSBT 22 News at 6 at the live desk. Pete Byrne, WSBT 22 Sports.
All right, Notre Dame has launched a new resource to track coronavirus cases related to the university. Officials started tracking the information August 3rd. This is all based on tests that have been administered by the Wellness Center on campus. You can see here there have been 67 tests done so far, and 4 tests have been positive.
2 new high schools in South Bend will start their school years this week, and students will be going back in person. Purdue Polytechnic High School will welcome students tomorrow, and River Montessori High School on Thursday. At River Montessori, 14 students are registered for the fall. They will have temperature checks at the door. Students and teachers will wear masks and distance themselves during instruction time. The Montessori model allows for more physical distancing.
A lot of the design features we had for our high school still work really well in a pandemic. So, for example, we're a small school. We call ourselves a micro school in that, because at maturity we'll only be 60 to 70 students.
At Purdue Polytechnic, around 30 students are registered for in-person classes, and about 30 others will start virtually. Wednesdays will be an e-learning day for everyone so the school can deep clean.
Bishop Kevin Rhodes is self-quarantining right now after being exposed to someone with coronavirus. A statement from the Fort Wayne South Bend Diocese says Rhodes is still waiting for his test results. Out of caution, though, the bishop will be missing several public events, including confirmation, masses, and meetings.
Phones are just ringing off the hook at one county health department. Officials in Johnson County say people are calling in to report others who aren't wearing masks. The statewide mask mandate has been in effect for 2 weeks now. The health department director says they've gotten calls about stores, restaurants, and school-related events every single day. And dealing with these reports is taking officials away from other duties.
We're trying to still provide well-rounded service with every one of our programs that we do on a daily basis. However, yeah, they will suffer.
The statewide order does not give local officials the authority to issue fines or other penalties for mask violations.
Senator Todd Young visited the Barnes at Napanee today. It's just one of the many local businesses taking a large financial hit because of the pandemic. WSBT 22's Lauren Becker is at the live desk. Lauren, Senator Young is proposing new legislation here that would help the hardest hit businesses.
Jennifer, it's called the Restart Act, and it's a new loan program to provide funding to cover 6 months of payroll and other expenses. It's a loan that would help keep businesses like the Barnes at Napanee surviving in the midst of this current crisis. Now, while taking a tour of the newly renovated Barnes at Napanee, Senator Young spoke to owner and former Congressman Marlin Stutzman about how it would help. It would offer a 7-year loan paid back over a 7-year period. Businesses could receive up to $12 million to help with payroll and basic bills. A share of the loan will be forgiven based on how much revenue the business lost in 2020. The rest of the loan will have to be repaid over 7 years. Stutzman says this is something he would apply for since revenue is way down. Take, for example, the arts and crafts market this past weekend. Only 1/10 of the typical number of visitors came out.
I am very fond of a loan program because I'm willing to pay it back, but I just need the capital right now to get through some very difficult times.
I feel like this is a proper role for government during this emergency time so that businesses like this will continue to grow wealth on the back end of this virus.
The Restart Act would provide more than $1 trillion in loans. Again, this is just a proposal right now, but Senator Young is hoping Congress arrives at a conclusion in the next few weeks. At the live desk, Lauren Becker, WSBT 22 News.
Joe Biden has announced his running mate for the White House. Next at 5, we're digging into this election, plus a look at next week's Democratic National Convention.
I'm Nancy Chin with the women behind these creations and how they're getting their lives back on track.
All right, here's a look at the swim risk, medium to low over the next couple of days. I'll have your full forecast coming up next.
First to cover breaking news with Jennifer Copeland and Todd Connor. Your accurate storm alert forecast with meteorologist Abby Webler. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 5.
The Democratic Convention begins in less than a week, and we are getting a look at the speaker lineup. And you'll notice some familiar names on there. On Monday, Governor Gretchen Whitmer will be speaking, along with Senators Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar, plus former First Lady Michelle Obama. On Thursday, former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg will take the stage with Senators Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. Other speeches are included for the rest of the week, including former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Plus, the newly announced vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris will also speak on Wednesday.
You know, Harris was announced just about an hour ago as Joe Biden's pick for vice president. Natalie Brand has the latest developments from the White House.
Joe Biden has made it official. He's picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate. She is only the third woman and the first black woman to be on a major party's presidential ticket. The California senator has known Biden for years after striking up a friendship with his late son, Beau. Harris was considered a frontrunner when she launched her own bid for the Democratic nomination and went after Biden during a primary debate last summer.
You also worked with them to oppose busing. And you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
That was the high point for her presidential campaign. As a former prosecutor, Harris failed to win over progressives who criticized her record of failing to intervene in cases involving killings by police. Biden had promised to pick a female running mate, and he put together a list of 13 candidates that his campaign vetted before he made his decision. He interviewed his top choices in person and remotely and has said his #1 criteria would be that from day one, his VP had to be ready to become president. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Teen Vogue is tackling the issue of voting rights ahead of the November election. New at 5, the August digital issue is called Suffragettes. It tells the story of 10 voting rights activists who are women of color. The magazine is doing a series that calls out the discriminatory state laws that prevent many non-white Americans from voting.
All right, we've got some quiet weather to enjoy, at least for a few days. I'll update you on that next.
A new outdoor fitness center in Michigan may help you not miss gyms being closed. I'm Bree Isom, and coming up on WSBT tonight at 6, I'll tell you all about the Woods Fitness Park and how you can work on your fitness here.
Now, your accurate storm alert weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin.
All right, here's a live look in St. Joe. A lot of you I know up that way don't have power yet, but it looks like the Bluff does. First off, our camera is working, which is good. Obviously requires power. And looks like a lot of people at the restaurant there on the Bluff as well. So hopefully power continues to get restored. The amount of customers is less and less every few hours, so that's good. But I know it's a lot of hard work for the crews, and it's just as hard, right, being patient with them as well. It's 78 degrees, excuse me, at the Southwest Michigan Regional Airport across the river there in Benton Harbor. Dew point is 60, a fairly low number, and it continues to fall, which represents dry air trying to sneak in here. Storm tracker radar, nice and quiet. That's good to see, unlike yesterday at this time, right? Very wide view across Indiana. Good chunk of the mitten there of Michigan looking clear as well. It is 82 in South Bend, 81 up the road in Niles, 79 in Knox, and in Winnemac, 81 LaGrange, Syracuse, 82 in beautiful Three Rivers. A wider view shows you not a lot of heat. Not a lot of relief, right? It's just warm. Temperatures in the 80s for a good chunk here of the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. But this kind of tells the story. These are dew points, a measure of moisture in the atmosphere. And when they're lower, it represents drier air, which is the light green color. The darker green indicates more humid tropical air like we've dealt with the past few days. You go outside today, it doesn't feel half bad. Don't get me wrong. It's still kind of humid, muggy, but it's not bad compared to yesterday. And when you get in the 50s, it feels really good. O'Hare reporting 51-degree dew point. That is picture perfect. That's like a spring atmosphere or a fall-like day. Here's Futurecast. I zoomed out so we can get the overall picture. There's not a lot to talk about locally as far as active weather, and that's good. So here's tomorrow morning, lots of sunshine, some clouds, especially south of US 30, but overall, decent amount of sun. As we push through Thursday, much of the same here. A pretty quiet pattern. You'll notice a lot of sunshine for our part of Indiana and Michigan. A little bit of activity to our west. We'll look at the weekend, looking okay. It's just starting to warm up a bit, back into the upper 80s. Next chance for rains on Sunday. Doesn't look very significant. If you didn't get too much rain yesterday, most of us saw like a ½ inch to about 3/4 of an inch. You're going to want to keep the sprinklers going, your irrigation equipment going. There's not a lot of rain in the forecast the next several days, and temperatures warming up. So our normal high as we move into mid-August now is in the low 80s. Most of these days in the mid to upper 80s. There's the chance for rain on Sunday, and you'll notice we cool off just a little bit as we get towards early next week. But all in all, this forecast is basically above average, which has been the trend here for many weeks as we've rolled through summer. Also want to mention, I made this somewhat joke or comment last night that I didn't have time. I need to find time and make a graphic, but overnight tonight, this evening overnight, the Perseid meteor shower is going on. It peaks in August 11th today. So if you get away from city lights, it should be good. If you're patient and just look straight up, put a blanket down, something like that, you'll see a couple shooting stars every hour. It's always good this time of year. I'll make a fancy graphic with like shooting stars with text so you can take a picture and send it to your friends and family about it. It's always fun this time of year.
You know what that is? It's kind of like birthday candles in space for a certain someone.
Thanks.
Happy birthday, Matt.
Thanks, I appreciate it. That's the only reason I remember it's the peak. I'm like, August 11th. If I forget that, then there are bigger problems going on than that.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, a nonprofit is helping women have a second chance at life. Next at 5, how the group is using handbags to help them recover.
You're watching WSBT 22 News at 5.
A nonprofit in New York's Hudson Valley is picking up the pieces, helping women who are recovering from addiction make and sell handcrafted bags.
The job gives them financial independence and purpose. New at 5, Nancy Chen shows us how their stories really aren't so different from the bags they create.
And we get a lot of orders on these.
Savannah Aragon grew up surrounded by gang violence and drugs. She battled a 10-year addiction and served jail time before stitching her life back together.
I was just out there. I felt like I was nothing.
She's now a seamstress at Unshattered, a nonprofit in New York's Hudson Valley that makes and sells handcrafted bags. 8 of the 10 women on the team are in recovery. The average age they began using is 11. One woman started drinking when she was just 5.
I love that pattern.
Kelly Lingard is the founder and CEO.
Most of them didn't have job skills. Maybe they didn't have an education, but most importantly, didn't have a safe community to go back home to.
The bags are made of upcycled, mostly new material from industry scraps like car upholstery, retired military uniforms.
This bag is made from a West Point cadet uniform.
And even sets from Broadway shows. Unshattered sells 3,000 to 4,000 bags a year, with 100% of the proceeds going to the women's salaries and benefits.
Relapse rates for substance abuse disorders range from 40 to 60%. But Unshattered says since starting 4 years ago, the rate for women who work here is 0.
And I think it's proof of our story that when you have community, you have purpose and meaning, and you have economic stability, you can truly thrive and move beyond your addiction.
They recently took on a new project, face masks. Donations from the community allowed the women to remain employed during the pandemic, sewing about 9,000 masks for frontline workers.
To do something amazing like that to help people, you know, and I just think it's awesome.
Reclaim fabrics, helping reclaim lives. Nancy Chen, CBS News, Hopewell Junction, New York.
Online shopping may soon get more expensive. New at 5, UPS has announced new surcharges on companies that ship more than 25,000 packages a week. That's for shipments happening between November 15th and January 16th. UPS is anticipating rising costs as more people shop online over the holidays. It's unclear whether retailers like Target, Amazon, and others will pass on the added cost to customers.
Right now, gun sales are through the roof during the pandemic. According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, sales are up as much as 95% across the country. Most retailers report that ammo sales have also increased as much as 139%. Retailers say most people who are buying are first-time gun owners looking for home defense.
Within 3 weeks to 2 weeks after the virus started, everybody started worrying about what's happening and places shutting down, and then the next big step is when they talk about defunding police departments and that kind of stuff. That made a big jump again.
The FBI is also reporting a huge increase in background checks. Last year, the agency performed 28.3 million background checks. This year, it's at 22.8 million just by the end of last month.
A heavy storm blew through Napanee last night, causing extensive damage. There were trees on houses, trees on sheds, trees on cars, trees on power lines. We'll have the latest.